Thank you all very much for having us here today. Thanks to the Chamber. As he said, my name is Alex Anderson, and I work for ECOS. And ECOS is a nonprofit organization based on the Duwamish River. And the organization was founded because there was a real need to sort of bridge a communicative gap between industrial businesses and local residents who were there. And so our organization is really unique in that we're an environmental organization, but we're also a pro-business organization. And so what we do is provide services to businesses that are both free and confidential. And so a lot of our work, involves just going out to businesses and just taking a look at their sites and helping them evaluate, what sort of changes they can make, particularly affordable changes, being creative and helping businesses make, just take simple steps forward that don't cost them a lot of money or time, but they can, make big improvements as far as reducing their environmental footprint. So we are a 501c3, and like I said, we provide free environmental technical assistance and education. Some of our key areas of focus, energy and water conservation is what Stephanie helps businesses with. Stormwater pollution prevention is what I'm currently working on. We also have a brownfield remediation program, and that's where we work with banks to identify properties that are contaminated and how much contamination is there, and whether they need some remediation to occur there in facilitating sales of property. We also have recycling and solid waste assistance, and Stephanie can also help your business with carbon footprinting to determine your business's carbon footprint. We get our funding through mostly through grants from foundations and also from memberships. We've got our big fundraising event coming up in October. We also get some donations, and we also have some local contracts where, for instance, I'll help local governments like the city of Tacoma or Shoreline go around and work with their ports or just their businesses and just educate those businesses on how to manage their stormwater. So some of the services that we offer across all of our programs, things like business assessments, like I said before, just going out to a business, walking around and talking with the business owner and just identifying ways in which they can improve their environmental practices. So for me, a lot of it with stormwater pollution prevention is just giving people an idea of where to store their materials in order to prevent things from getting, potentially spilling and getting into the drain, where it will then go into the Duwamish River. And also, helping businesses. There's a lot of industrial businesses that have permits, and they're very complicated and very cumbersome, and it's difficult for these businesses to try and just run their daily operations and manage these sort of big permits and paperwork. We also have some workshops. Stephanie just hosted a workshop recently on how to incorporate sustainability into your business. We have industrial stormwater management workshops. We have solid waste disposal workshops. As I mentioned before, we have a carbon calculator that Stephanie can help you with. Another thing that we do for businesses is just try and get you looped into local programs that already exist, local incentive programs. One that I found really helpful, for example, is King County has what is called a voucher incentive program. And it's where they will match you up to $500 on half of the cost of your disposal of hazardous waste. And hazardous waste seems like something that would be more for an industrial business, but in a lot of cases, it's things like like your lighting fixtures and things like that are out of date, and or sometimes you move into a business and somebody left behind a big pile of goodies for you, and cans and solvents and all these different things that you now have to get rid of. This is a great program for that. And so what you can do is sort of bundle all your hazardous waste together, whether it's batteries, paints, solvents, anything like that, and they'll match you up to half of the disposal costs on that. So I just want to talk very briefly about sort of the issue of stormwater pollution. It's not something that's very heavy on the minds of a lot of small business owners because they're not, heavily regulated in managing it. And so it's a really huge issue around here, particularly in Kent and cities that are located along the Duwamish River, River has become really polluted over the years. And it's not really, there's nowhere to place the blame for that. It's sort of just, the issue of stormwater pollution is only recently come into sort of the consciousness of the public. And so now we're kind of realizing how big of a problem it is. And it's the leading source of pollution in both the Duwamish River and the Puget Sound. And it's a result of just us going about our daily lives, and every activity that we do pretty much ends up depositing some chemicals onto surfaces of roads, rooftops, schoolyards, all sorts of things. And those chemicals build up, and then when it rains, which it so often does here, it hits that pavement, picks up all those pollutants, creates a really nasty sort of stew of toxins, and then carries it into a drain which just dumps right out into the Duwamish River. And so it has all sorts of negative impacts, and it's, even some of the most benign chemicals, have a really profound impact. I mean, it doesn't have to be something innately toxic. It could be something like tap water, it could be something like, milk or beer spilling out of a beer truck, anything like that. It all just accumulates and it has a big impact. So this can kind of give you an idea of why that impact is so large. You can see this is the stormwater infrastructure of a neighborhood that is on the Duwamish River. And so these are all the places where that stormwater is, flushing out into the river. But you can see that there's this whole intricate web upland where all these businesses are just discharging the same pipes that go to the same ultimate outfalls. And so, it's really, you don't often see what that looks like, but it's, you have just these pipes spewing out, water that it doesn't look like water constantly into our rivers. And so, when you look at this, it's a lot easier to sort of get an idea of how that pollution can really accumulate over time. On top of this, we also have other combined sewer infrastructures in some areas where sewage and stormwater goes into one pipe, and when those pipes get overflowed with water when it rains, which is just about any time we have a heavy rain, the sewage and the stormwater go out into our local rivers. And so, that's another case where even if you were on a combined sewer where sometimes it gets treated, it's still very important to make sure that you're not spilling, or that if you have spills out in your parking lot or things like that, that you clean them up and you manage them, and that you're not, letting people change their oil or things like that outside of your business, or that if a car pulls in off the highway and they've got a busted oil pan or something, it's really important that you respond like it's an emergency. So, some Kent-specific stormwater things. Kent, almost all of the stormwater here drains to the Duwamish River. I believe in the sort of just the very southwest corner, there is some drainage that goes to McSorley Creek, which ultimately drains into the Puget Sound.
Good question.
Yeah, absolutely.
How far up does Duwamish go before the Green River Duwamish?
That's a great question. I'm not sure. I would imagine just
You can
down.
go to Duwamish, but I think in Kent it's the Green River. Is that right?
In Kent, I believe it's the Duwamish. In Auburn, I believe it's the Green River. So it's somewhere around there, but you very well could be right. Another thing I want to encourage all of you, please just interrupt me at any time and ask me any questions that you may have, especially if you have any business, but specific questions about it.
So are you saying the Duwamish and the Green River, they're the same?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep, they are one river. Exactly. So one thing that you might not be aware of, most people I don't think are, is that there are now mandatory best management practices in the city of Kent, where they're just things that the city requires every business to do in managing their stormwater. And so they're pretty simple things, and it's not like there's a big enforcement effort out there to crack down on businesses who aren't doing these things. But some of them include maintaining your storm drain system, and what that means is keeping your drains clean. So it's not a matter of flushing them out with something, because that would be incredibly disastrous as far as stormwater pollution goes. But you'd have to have a truck come out and vacuum out your drains occasionally. They also require that your storm drains are stenciled. Which is, just having a stencil on there that says this storm drain drains to a local creek or river, something like that. One complicated complication with that now that the city has mandated is that it's you have to use like a thermo plastic seal now. You can't just paint them on yourself, which is a heck of a lot easier. So they've kind of made that a little bit more of a pain. So that's something to keep in mind. And if you ever want to stencil your storm drains, please, and you need to find a place to pick up those materials, please just give me a call and I can send you some links as to where you can buy those things. Also, eliminating illicit connections. This just means that occasionally there are times when people have old infrastructure and their stormwater pipes or their sanitary sewer pipes coming from their sinks and toilets and washing machines and things like that are sort of accidentally plugged into the storm water line. So then you just have people's gray water, black water, all these things going into a storm drain line and then just dumping directly into our river. Just a quick note, in 2009 the EPA was sued. They have a program that's their big stormwater management program. It's called the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. And it's based off of the Clean Water Act, which was created in 1972. And they were sued because a third-party lawsuit group, which is actually a third-party citizen group, which just is a group of just individuals who decided to challenge that program. They sued the EPA on the grounds that the NPDES program does not meet the requirements of the Clean Water Act. And the only reason why this is important to you is because what it means is the EPA now is really going to be ramping up their efforts in stormwater management. And it's going to affect everybody on some level because the city of Kent has its own stormwater permit that it needs to manage, where it manages probably most of your businesses as a liability and tries to look after you a little bit and make sure nobody's dumping things into their storm drains and things like that. There are also individual businesses, larger businesses that have their own permits around here that will have to deal with a lot more strict regulations. And so I bring this up just because right now this might not be something that's very important to you or that you have to think a lot about with your businesses. But in the near future, it might be, and I really encourage you to contact us with just any questions that you have about managing your stormwater. Yes, sir.
What is the difference between gray water and black water, and whatever other colors of water you use?
That's a good question. So gray water would be, like soapy water, things like that. Most of the stuff that would go down your sink, and black water would be, sewage. So the services that we can provide your business, a lot of these are pretty essential and will just sort of help you get to where you need to be fully in compliance with city regulations. And maybe this might not be important to you now, but someday an inspector might come by and say, okay, well, you guys need to have a spill kit and you need to have a spill response plan and these things. And in that event, please just call us and let us, sort of hold your hand and walk you through it. It's pretty easy stuff. This is one of our spill kits. These are starting to become more regularly required of businesses to have in the city. And so really what it is just a tool to help you block up your storm drain in the event that you have a big emergency spill. So you've got a tool to help you open up the drain. You've got some highly absorbent towels or pads in here. You've got some booms, 2 of these that are about 4.5 feet long to help you sort of wall off the spill. And then you also have a really large plastic cover to put over your drain to block it up in case you have a truck pouring out oil. You need to just shut the drain off. You can't let anything get down there. That's really important for all of you because it's, a lot of times that's why the city wants businesses to have a spill kit. It's not because of anything that you do in your operations. It's because of all the potential for something to happen on your site that might not even be within your control, but you will be liable for it. If it goes down your drain and it keeps going until it gets to the river, you're going to be liable for all of the cleanup between your business and the end of that pipe, including the river. So yeah, it's that bad. So if it happens on your site and it goes down your drain, if you can stop it at any point, you need to chase it basically. And this is getting into liability that, could be in, near $10,000 or more. So that's why a spill kit is important to have, is because somebody else could really ruin your day by, you know, having an accidental spill on your site. So some of the things that we offer is a spill contingency plan. This is just something that you can post up on your wall, and your employees, you know, will have access to emergency contact numbers. They know what sort of chemicals that you have on site that could potentially spill, and they have some direction as far as what to do in the event of an emergency spill. NPDES permit assistance, as I mentioned before, that's the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. If you know anybody who works for a really big industrial business, it's very likely that they have one of these permits. They're very difficult to manage, and they're very strict requirements for things that they have to do, including things like sampling their water and things like that. So we provide assistance with that. Corrective actions assistance, this is something that, you know, is potentially, you know, a lot of businesses face at some point. The city comes through and does an inspection and just gives you a little checklist of things that they would like you to, you know, to do to sort of get up to speed and in compliance. And then we also offer workshops for the industrial stormwater general permit, which is another stormwater permit that's really cumbersome. Yes, sir.
Yeah, recently I had a flood in my office, and it came out of the toilet and out of the sewer, and they said there was black water. That was black water. That's what kind of reason for my question. And then when they cleaned it up, they basically treated it as a hazardous site.
Yeah.
Because, so they basically took then the first foot of all their walls, of the plasterboard, they had cut off the first foot, take all the carpeting, and completely, it took about a month until I had my office back.
Yeah.
It was, and apparently the complex that I'm in had a laundromat that kept spewing down lint into
yeah.
and then the sewer pipes, you know, 15, 20 years old, and just, you know, years and years, and they said that someone tried to clean it up and it caused a major problem. Anyway, so just, that's
yeah, I mean, and those type of things, you know, that's another type of thing that can happen on your site. You have no control over it, but if, you know, if that's happening, sometimes you're on what's called a combined sewer system, as I mentioned before, where it's not a separate stormwater pipe and a sanitary sewer pipe, it's just both in a giant pipe. So when you have those sorts of backups, you can have storm drains that back up all sorts of pollutants. And then then it's your problem. It's a big problem that you've got on your hands, even if your operations, if you own a bookstore, you don't have anything that can spill, you know. It's still a potential for your liability there. So I just want to leave you with that if for any of you, if you ever have any stormwater related concerns, questions, anything like that, you just want somebody to come out to your business and make sure that you don't have, you know, a potential to create this type of pollution. That's exactly what we do. It's all free. It's all confidential. Yes, ma'am.
I noticed up on East Hill, there's a project with Washington State Transportation. So are you guys working in tandem with them to make sure they're laying down all this stuff? Are they putting stuff in the drains? And
No, you know, you didn't hear this from me.
Okay.
But I mean, you know, seemingly government agencies, they don't ever really work with each other. And so you've got one agency working really hard, giving us contracts to help educate the public on stormwater pollution prevention, making sure that, you know, I mean, you know, they've got enforcement arms going around finding businesses for creating pollution and being negligent about these things. But then you've got, you know, other agencies out there dumping piles of awful pollutants in the woods somewhere because they can. And, you know, that's one of the biggest ones is the Department of Transportation. And I've been taken on some tours where we were kicked out of sites where, you know, you go walk through the woods for a little ways and you find a little road, a little dirt road that goes off to a place where they just dump stuff in the middle of a serene little, you know, gully area or something like that. Who knows? Maybe that's a temporary storage thing because they don't have the capacity and they move it. I have no idea, but I know that that's definitely not sort of, you know, in line with pollution prevention.
sounds like a conversation you could have.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, I don't think I'm not high enough on the total to initiate that conversation. Any more questions?
Do you work closely with the health department?
Not particularly. When we work in Pierce County, we do. We work with Pierce County Public Health. But in other cities, we We have other, actually that's not true. We have other programs that do work closely with the health department. We have programs where we have multicultural outreach workers who go out to residents and to non-English speaking businesses and teach them about, you know, chemical management and things like that, and cleaning products where, you know, cleaning products in the home. And so for those programs, we do work closely with public health agencies.
Well, the reason I say that, I previously worked with Allied Waste Services, and I know that they had their own permit for
Yep.
the storms and everything, but one of the regulations that came through the health department that we had, it was a big promotion of including food scraps in yard waste containers. And so as we had put the proposal together, I mean, your second nature is if your yard waste cart starts to smell and get gross, you know, wash it out with your hose and go down the sewer drain. And we had to write in proposal that in our educational materials that we would say that you rinse it and wipe it, that you make sure that it doesn't go
Absolutely.
into the sewer.
You know, that's just a common thing that most people don't know. And it's just, most people, we're not used to having to deal with these sort of issues at our homes and at our businesses. So it's very understandable, but it's very important, you know, to sort of, you know, increase the awareness about that. You know, if you have a, you know, shop front downtown and you're spraying off, you know, the pavement in front of your business, that's really bad for the environment. It's really bad. It's just taking all these different things that get deposited on that pavement and just putting it into the river. You know, it's out of your way. It's going right into the river. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, the dumpsters about that.
Mm-hmm.
We were just thinking about rinsing ours out because it smelled really bad because it was so much food and it was hot. That's probably not good then, huh?
Well, so just think about it like this.
You just drain it. And,
I mean, you're right, and these are all perfect scenarios for the type of things that every business, you know, deals with that involves stormwater pollution. And you know, that's a great question, and that's one of those challenges, you know,
Yeah.
finding a way to do that. So, you know, whether it's, you know, putting some cinder blocks around it and putting a tarp so that you can trap the water that, you know, once you've rinsed it out, you know, you can rinse it out and it's probably only going to come out the corners on the bottom of the dumpster. Finding a way to trap that water basically and get it into your sink. And so, you know, car washes, especially community car washes, they're terrible for the environment. You know, if you have kids who, you know, are having car wash fundraisers, have them sell tickets to the local car wash. They can make more money doing that, and they're not completely dumping, you know, a lot of terrible toxins into the river. Because it's not just about the fish. It's about those toxins end up in our bodies all the time. Everything that goes into the river ends up in your body. So you have way more toxins in you than any fish ever would, than any orca whale ever does, because we're at the top of the food chain. And so we get, all those toxins persist forever. So when, you know, when heavy metals soak down to the bottom of a river and they go into the soft tissue of a mussel, you know, whatever ends up eating that mussel and it keeps going up the food chain, ultimately it ends up in one of us and it never goes anywhere. So, you know, that's one thing to think about with all this is, you know, the fish are very important, and so is our health, and everything that we wash off and into the drain, you know, ends up in our, you know, in our food chain and ultimately in our bodies. I think that is it for me. Is there any more questions at all? Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
So I'm Stephanie Gowing. I'm sit right across the desk with Alex at Ecos. I'm going to chat a little bit about benchmarking, finding the baseline, kind of what carbon footprinting is, and how thinking about metrics and accounting can help you realize energy and water savings in your business. And so I'm just trying to take account of some of your different businesses, and so I'll try to keep those in mind when I'm going through the slides so you don't get too overwhelmed. And please ask questions if you're not understanding or if it's just a silly question you think, please ask, because I want to make sure that you guys know I'm reaching you. So I'm going to quickly go over how a carbon footprint can help your business go green, conserve. I'm just giving you a very basic 101 on what carbon footprinting is, gases, activities, and emissions. Then I'm going to walk through a local tool that King County is using that uses the measurements behind the tool are coming from local utility companies, local bus services, rail, and also it's using EPA references. So it's using more local metrics to give you kind of more of an accurate number on your tool. And then I'm going to just show you and tell you how ECOS can help you with all these different things. So just thinking about how a carbon footprint can make your business go green, what a carbon footprint tool is it makes you kind of get some numbers together. You want to make friends with your accounting person at your office, and some of that might be you guys. You want to you take all these different numbers, put them in one tool, and you can help realize where there might be some gaps. So some examples would be if you were to, over the course of a year, look at your purchasing and you go, wow, we are purchasing a lot of paper, in our company. Maybe we should make some changes to reduce that because paper costs money, paper creates emissions and uses trees and all these things. And so let's ask everyone to print double-sided. That's just one example of how a simple accounting tool like a carbon footprint calculator can help you realize new discoveries and some maybe new gaps that you weren't really thinking about, and even some compliance issues as what Alex was talking about. So maybe you're realizing, and this might not hit all of you guys, but that your compliance, your permits and things are really high. So those bills are costing a lot of money. Let's maybe look at some ways to think about ways to get off that permit and to be more of a better business in some of our practices. So what a footprint does, or carbon footprint calculator does, it helps set a baseline. And so you, over the course of a year, you can figure out that baseline, and then the next year, see if you guys have made any changes, any negative or positive changes. And this, I'll get to some more visuals to give you an idea of what a carbon calculator looks like. But so you're thinking, why would I do all this? Well, your customers, they want to know what you guys are doing to reduce your impact on your operations. And a carbon calculator is a great way to do that, saying that we use this carbon calculator and we're making ways to reduce our emissions, we're doing ways to reduce our impact. So that's just one way of showing that you're going green. It's a good way of showing metrics, and people like metrics, so you're not greenwashing. So just basically a 101 on what gases are and what is carbon equivalent. So what greenhouse gases, there's 7 of them. These are just the main ones here. But how they do is, what you use in a carbon calculator is it naturally measures all the greenhouse gases as an equivalent to carbon dioxide. So there's different global warming potentials, but this tool and all carbon calculator tools that you find online are going to create an equivalent as 1 carbon dioxide. And like I said before, you want to do a carbon footprint once a year. So that's the average time that people will do a carbon calculator, use a carbon calculator. So there's different scopes to a carbon calculator. So there's 3 different scopes. Most of you guys will be using, well, depending how elaborate you want to get into your carbon calculator. We did one for our facility, and we just touched on a couple areas in scope 3. So scope 1 is your direct emissions. So if you're a power company, you have to count that. Or your company-owned vehicles, which would probably be in your trucking business, you would count that as your scope 1. Your scope 2 would be things that you're purchasing. So that's, most of us are purchasing our electricity from utilities, so that's what you would call your scope 2. Your scope 3 is everything else. So how your employees are getting to work, the waste that you're generating, the things that you're buying, that's going to be your scope 3. And a lot of times businesses just do scope 1 and scope 2 because it's pretty easy to get some of that data and just say, this is what our emissions are over the course of a year. This is how much utilities we're using, how much energy and water we're using, and so they just use those numbers to compare one year after the next and try to make changes to reduce that. Whereas others like Ecos, we tried to look at more of the scope 3, and we looked at how our employees are getting to work, some of the stuff that we're purchasing, and how we're getting rid of that, so our waste and things like that. Okay, so I'm just going to walk through kind of what I said, just as some visuals, using the carbon calculator that's for King County. Okay, so this is just it's an Excel spreadsheet. This is free and easy to use. This is the first worksheet that you said, it says getting started. It's basically saying what kind of data that you need to collect, okay? And we do have some information over here too that can help you kind of understand what data you want to collect. But things to think about is where to get this data. So a lot, like I said earlier, your accountant or your billing area or HR, they're going to know some of this information. You can also call Puget Sound Energy, or right, you guys are with Puget Sound Energy for electricity and gas, and they can give you your year consumption, and you can just use that data and you put it right in this tool. So there's also in this tool a worksheet for transportation, so you can survey your staff on how they're getting to and from work, and that's nice also for your carbon calculator, but it's also nice to know how your staff is getting to and from work. I mean, you guys are fairly small businesses, so you may know that already, but maybe later in the future when you guys are expanding and you're thinking you have some staff that you want to know where they're coming from, it will help with different areas of maybe offering satellite offices or working from home or things like that that can help out the business. So there's also different areas here, energy, transportation, materials, and some examples of material uses that you'd want to put in the tool are paper, ink cartridges, things like that. So if you're using Office Max, they can give you a great spreadsheet over the course of a year, your number one consumptions or staples or things like that. So same with waste. Any questions yet? Do you have any questions yet? Okay. So the second step would be just to collect that information. And things to think about is to get things that you have control over. So a lot of times businesses don't actually own the facility that they're in or the building that they're in. So there's a little bit of time that is needed to ask the building owner for some of that information. If they obviously pay the utility bills, but a lot of cases you guys will. You have to think, what data will you be able to obtain? So if you so here's an example of like a restaurant. Some of the staff have really, some of their timing getting to and from work is not a typical 8 to 5. So surveying them on how they get to and from work can be a little bit difficult because restaurant hours are not documented perfectly in this tool. So the survey that you're surveying the staff on transportation is basically you your lighting, they'll look at your, some of your kitchen equipment, and they'll work to package a great deal with you guys, where it's like 70% off the installation cost. And they do like a return investment and everything, and lay it out for you. So we help connect businesses with the, kind of speed that process along, because Puget Sound Energy is not the quickest business to work with. But there's also some incentives through the Saving Water Partnership. And so that is just a little bit over here in Kent, that you guys can receive $150 rebates on new toilets. You can receive free aerators, which are, little aerators are things that you can put in your faucet, and they conserve a lot of energy and water. And then they also can provide you with some free, or we can provide you guys with some free dye tabs. That's just something that you put, just one second, you put in your toilet tank, and you wait 10 seconds, and if your water bowl is blue, then you have a leaky valve, and so you want to, you're like, maybe I should upgrade for basically a free toilet. So, what's your question?
Recently, they replaced the ballast and lights in the office, and it was all free to the business.
Great.
It was a tax credit that
Great,
the
yeah.
government did, so that was kind of an example
Yeah.
of what you're.
You know, lighting is a very there's a great lighting program. There's also a great HVAC program, so you're heating and ventilation. There's also some great restaurants incentives, so ovens, kitchen, any types of steamers, dishwashing equipment. If you're thinking about upgrading any equipment that's going to cost money, please let me or Puget Sound Energy know first, so we can at least take a look to see if there's incentives out there first before, because they don't like to have you do the installation and then say, oh, I just put a new heating system in. Where's my rebate? No, I'm sorry, you have to do that first. So, do you have a question? Yeah.
Yes, what about homeowners associations that have been built since 1986, and all of the lighting and fixtures on the outside, they put them in? What do you do about that? Is there
That's a
any
good, that's a great question. So, I haven't dealt with them, so I'm on the business side. I haven't dealt with any of the residential, but that seems, is there a board or a homeowners association board? So that might be, so in that situation, I would, and I can help you do this too, is I would give PSC a call and say, hey, can we both come out, get a nice package together, and present the cost-benefit analysis, basically, of doing some upgrades to all the homes. And then you have a meeting, and then you present it to everybody, and I guess they vote on it, right?
Yes.
I've not heard of them. Okay.
Yes.
So sometimes you just, and I would be happy to help work with you on that too. It's just, yeah, thank you. You just gotta get people in the room.
One thing I just wanted to bring up is that another reason why this is really important is just to get some transparency in what you're, how you're using your resources at your workplace. And just, as far as just getting that transparency, it's all free. You don't have to replace your dishwashers or do all this stuff. And, Puget Sound Energy might come out and try and convince you to do all that stuff. But the most important thing is just seeing where all this stuff is going. Because you might be running a restaurant and have an ice machine that is like using up all your water, and you don't realize it. You leave it running all day and it's making ice, but it's just using tons of water to both cool it and also make the ice. And that could just be a huge, expense. And so that's one thing that's really good for you, is just getting a good idea of where your expenses are going and what you're using.
There's also some great technology out there that are really attaching well with like your iPhone and things that you can shut down with your phone, a phone app. You can turn off all the lights. And there's also programs that, like vending machines. Those are just energy hogs. And, if you ever go downtown Kent, you see some of the lights still on in some of the buildings. It's just, there's other ways, so that is why a lot of businesses want to have a green team or some kind of champion in their business that's kind of think about these things and say, hey, maybe we should have janitorial staff come in right before we're closing down, so they don't have to come in on the weekends and turn all the lights on and use all that energy. So maybe just little things like that, and maybe putting like a sticker or something above, don't forget to turn the lights off, and having accurate labels on your compost, landfill, recycling, and having your printer set to double-sided automatic, so people don't have to think about things. Yeah.
This may be, when we first moved in here, we compost everything, we yard waste everything, and I never did get an answer back if there's a way for businesses to compost or yard waste. I don't believe there is.
So you guys can.
We call it home and do it.
Okay.
But.
So there is a service, and it's you guys are, your waste provider is Allied
yeah.
Waste. And so they'll have composting, they'll have a composting option on their billing plan as well. And what we can help you with is do kind of a waste audit to figure out how much of your waste is compostable, how much of it is landfill, how much is recyclable. And a lot of the times, if you don't have a composting program, you're realizing how much your garbage costs are because all of that is going into your landfill bin. So if you're able to, and that's great that you're able to take it home, but what a pain.
Right, we haul it
Take it
home.
home,
We
yeah.
actually recycle even, there's a place by IKEA that does styrofoam too. So
Yes,
we
right behind, they're
we have
the
bins.
only place that.
We recycle it.
That's great,
So,
yeah.
But, yeah, I was wondering if there's just a commercial yard waste type of thing that we could do, but I don't believe so.
Well, I don't know if Cedar Grove takes it, you know, Cedar Grove just takes it by the truckload.
I'm not sure.
I know there's Cedar Grove here in Kent, but I don't think you can do drop-offs.
Okay.
This is a great opportunity just to bring up, sorry to interrupt you. These questions, please take our cards. And when you have these questions, just call us. And not only that, but you can put us to work to have us make the calls for you. That's what we get paid to do. So you're at your job all day long, taking care of business. If you have this question, it's important, it could potentially save you money. Just take our card, get our contact information on your computer or something, and every time you have one of these questions, just give us a call and put us to work.
Yeah, I mean, I can help, I can do your carbon footprint for you. A lot of these small or medium-sized businesses, it's just about giving you the name and the number to call the utility provider to say, yes, you can provide Stephanie your data. So there's some confidentiality stuff for not giving me all your numbers to put in here. But I can put a lot of that information in and then kind of work that plan out for you, more specific to each business, each of your businesses, to try to take steps to reduce not only your footprint, but to also realize, wow, there's all these programs and incentives available to, save our business some money. So, like Alex said, please take our cards and follow up with some questions, and we'll be happy to get that started. So this is a voucher program that Alex was talking about. There's the toilet rebate application that is through the Saving Water Partnership that the city of Kent helps with. There also is this nice, the city of Kent has a resource management for Kent businesses. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but it's pretty thick, full of resources. There's tons of recycling facilities, and that may in fact have some options on where to take your yard waste specifically. And there's this nice handout right over here on kind of where, depending on, like I said, where your business is located, really depends on some of those incentives. And then it has links to those different groups that goes right to their incentives for business, specifically for businesses. If there's any other, any questions, we're, happy to, like I said, help get you guys started, put everything together, package it more individually. I guess last step is that we love success stories. We love recognizing businesses that are consciously doing good work, trying hard to be good businesses and, thinking about stormwater pollution and, carbon footprinting and energy conservation, and then kind of educating their staff. It's really great when you get your staff on board and it brings, camaraderie and support. And so we want to hear those stories and recognize you guys. And so we'd be happy to package that up with you guys too. And I guess that's the last slide for me and Alex. But questions, please, if there's any other questions.
We do not have time for questions.
Okay, yeah, sorry. All right.